Welcome to NACD BoardVision, where leading boardroom advisors, governance professionals, and seasoned directors discuss critical issues related to your responsibilities in the boardroom.
Welcome to NACD's BoardVision. I'm Peter Gleason, Managing Director of the National Association of Corporate Directors, and I'm joined today by John Barry, the leader of PwC's Center for Board Governance. Welcome, John.
Thanks, Peter. I'm happy to be here.
Okay, John, we're going to take a different tack with this episode of BoardVision, right?
Well, Peter, over the past few months, we've talked about many different topics during our BoardVision webcasts. Now it seems like a good time to provide our viewers with an update on how some of the more important issues have developed.
Not a bad idea at all, John. There's an awful lot going on and no shortage of things to discuss. Let's start with the status of the Dodd-Frank whistleblower rules that we initially covered back in a February episode. The whistleblower discussion remains top of mind for many directors. Do you want to start us off on this one?
Peter, as most directors well know, the Dodd-Frank Act called for direct reporting to the SEC by whistleblowers, with the SEC providing a cash bounty for successful whistleblower claims. Many companies and their directors have expressed concern that this process will undermine the company's own well-developed integrity programs, such as hotlines, because the whistleblowers will completely bypass them. Also, the rule doesn't allow companies enough time to investigate an allegation before the SEC comes knocking at their door.
This is a huge concern for directors, and rightly so. We at NACD have worked very hard to ensure that legislators and SEC rulemakers understand the potentially severe problems that this law presents. According to the Act, the SEC was supposed to finalize the rules on whistleblowers by April 21st, and most of us believe they'd be on schedule. However, the SEC delayed rulemaking to the end of May. John, I was one of those that thought we would have the rules by now, but I'm glad we don't. Ken Daly, CEO of NACD, wrote an op-ed last month suggesting that we take a year to study the impact of the SOX whistleblower rules, and suggested that Congress hold some hearings on the actual necessity of the Dodd-Frank provisions around whistleblowers. Amazingly, a hearing by the House Subcommittee on Capital Markets and Government-Sponsored Enterprises was held, and Kent actually testified in that hearing. I'm not sure that the hearings changed anyone's mind on the Hill, but our concerns were heard. So, we have not heard the end of the whistleblower saga by any means.
Well, we don't expect major modifications to the existing proposal. This is a good example of how companies who have well-developed and thought-out points of view have been able to influence regulators and rulemakers, forcing them to at least respond to some valid concerns.
John, a draft bill has been introduced by freshman Congressman Grimm from New York that seeks to amend Dodd-Frank and the whistleblower provisions to stipulate that no bounty would be received unless the whistleblower first submits to the company. While amending Dodd-Frank seems like an uphill battle right now, if passed, this would make the final rules on whistleblowers a bit more workable for companies. Okay, let's go on to another topic and look across the pond with what's new with regard to the UK Bribery Act.
My partner, Catherine Bromelow, described some of the key provisions of the Act in her March 4th webcast when she was talking about international developments that impact U.S. companies. What's new since then is that recently the UK Ministry of Justice issued long-awaiting guidance which establishes and clarifies a number of matters. Most importantly, that guidance allows the law to take effect as of July 1, 2011.
So we've got the guidance. Now, what are the implications to U.S. companies of the UK Bribery Act?
This law not only applies to UK companies, but also U.S. companies and other multinationals. Peter, virtually all companies that conduct business in the UK can be held accountable for offenses, whether they occurred in the UK or elsewhere. The law is very complex, and we certainly can't go into it in depth here, but it has some very strict provisions around issues like corporate entertainment and promotional expenditures. Plus, it prohibits facilitating payments and any bribery between private parties. In these later 2 points, it's far more onerous than the FCPA, which allows certain facilitating payments and only covers bribes paid to government officials. With the Act's effective date around the corner, it's important for companies with a tie of some sort to the UK to review and evaluate their compliance programs and determine what adjustments or refinements may need to be made.
So it's essential for companies with operations in the UK to keep on top of this one. Thanks, John. Moving on to another topic, there's been an important development in an area that we haven't had a chance to discuss previously. John, I understand the Financial Accounting Standards Board and the International Accounting Standards Board made an important announcement about their schedule.
The FASB and the IASB have been working on some major joint projects on revenue recognition, leases, and financial instruments as part of the U.S. GAAP IFRS Conversion agenda. Previously, they had a June 11 target completion date for these projects. At the end of April, the boards announced they're extending the date for completion until the end of 2011. The boards agreed that additional time was needed to make key decisions on these projects and to obtain feedback from stakeholders on the changes proposed since the last update.
Bad news that they're off schedule. Good news in that this issue is extremely complex and the potential impact on companies could be significant.
Peter, this is good news. These are complex areas of accounting that when implemented can impact a company's financial results, systems, and even operations. So taking the extra time to get input from as many impacted constituents as possible is a good thing.
John, where is the SEC on the IFRS conversion discussion? I understand there's some activity planned for July.
The SEC is still on record to make a decision on international financial reporting standards by the end of 2011. We believe this date could be a challenge given the delays I mentioned a minute ago. As part of their ongoing evaluation of IFRS, on July 7th, the SEC staff plans to hold a roundtable to discuss the benefits and challenges of potentially incorporating IFRS into the financial reporting system for U.S. companies. The topics will include investor understanding of IFRS, the impact on smaller public companies, and the impact on the regulatory environment of incorporating IFRS. In summary, there's a lot going on in the world of standard setting for accounting, and directors need to ensure your companies stay on top of the issues and their impacts. When there's news to report, we'll be here to help you understand the developments and the possible impact on your companies.
Thanks for the update, John, and I hope we've supplied our audience with several issues to think about. As some of these issues continue to unfold, we'll keep you up to date in future episodes of BoardVision. Well, that wraps up another edition of NACD's BoardVision. On behalf of PwC and the National Association of Corporate Directors, I'm Peter Gleason. Thanks for joining us.